What's going on, everyone? So finally we are getting a list on Mandalorian Blue today, and this one is a pretty sweet tempo upgrade oriented list, and I'm excited to dive into some games, talk about the deck, and all the above. Guys, if you want to pick up any of the set 2 or set 1 cards, I have a TCG play link in the description down below that if you use, it helps me out as well as helps you out. But let's talk Mandalorian Blue and some of the things that make it incredibly strong. For those of you that don't know what the Mandalorian does, he is a cunning heroism leader that says whenever you play an upgrade, you may exhaust this leader. If you do, exhaust an enemy unit with 4 or less remaining HP. So pretty sweet, especially in the earlier stages of the game. You're going to be kind of just doing your thing and then preventing your opponent from attacking, which is why I say tempo-less. So if you're against more mid-range or aggro decks, it's going to be hard for them to trade with you or get in damage to your base, which is really important if you want to keep your units alive to deploy some upgrades on them. Mind you, this says play an upgrade, so if you get an experience token or shield token, generally speaking, those are not going to trigger it unless you have a card that specifically you play, like Moment of Peace, that's going to give a shield token to something. Then he flips over for 6 resources and is a 4/7 and has a similar ability where whenever you play an upgrade, you do not have to exhaust him, but you can exhaust an enemy unit with 6 or less remaining HP anytime you play an upgrade, which is really powerful. But that doesn't really kind of show the whole story. There is one card in particular that I want to mention as we dive into the deck tech, and then of course all the kind of support pieces that make this deck really shine. Starting us off here with, well, the cards that you're used to seeing. We have a couple of cards that, well, upgrades, I should say, that you might have seen in set 1. We have things like Snapshot Reflexes. This gives an instant attack that also exhausts something, that also gives you +1/+1. We have Devotion. This is really good in the aggro matchups, right? You exhaust something. When you play this, you get Restore 2 on something. Suddenly your opponent can't race you at all. We have Electro Staff. This is really good on your Sentinels. It just kind of makes it really hard for them to take it down. We have 3 copies of Jedi Lightsaber, and as we talk about the units, a lot of, well, Force units just naturally sprinkled throughout the deck. These are some of the upgrades that you're used to seeing. As for units, we have Guardian of the Wills. This is a kind of card that in some cases going to be extremely weak, right? On turn 1, you know, they play a 2/3 and you're like, oh, I don't want to play a Guardian of the Wills if I don't have the initiative because I'm just going to lose it. But in some cases, it can be extremely impressive, right? You can go Guardian of the Wills turn 1 into like a Snapshot Reflexes, for example, just to pump it up, into, you know, turn 2 Jedi Lightsaber, Snapshot Reflexes, or Devotion plus something else. There's a lot of different options that you have with Guardian of the Wills. We have, as we continue on with the cards that you're used to seeing, Ezra Bridger, Kanan, as well as Chewbacca and Luke. Ezra, Kanan, Guardian of the Wills, by the way, all have the Force tag, which is extremely important because we do have, as I said, the Jedi Lightsaber, which, you know, just makes Jedi Lightsaber an extremely oppressive attacking upgrade. And at the top end, as I mentioned, we have Chewbacca and Luke. Chewbacca is really good when you upgrade him because anytime they attack him, he's going to ready. So if you upgrade him, like get a, let's say, Jedi Lightsaber on him, he becomes a 6/9. So your opponent will probably die when they attack him. And then you get to attack back, which is really powerful. And Luke, just kind of finishing off the top end, just a high value unit, while also giving us another Force unit to potentially deploy some really powerful upgrades on him. And then we get to the new set stuff. Well, I guess also we have the Millennium Falcon in the space. We don't want too many space units because a lot of the upgrades we have are attached to non-vehicle units. So we got to make sure we have a lot of non-vehicles in the deck. But as for newer units and newer upgrades, we have things like Queel, Follower of the Way in the 2-drop slot alongside L337 and Fugitive Wookiee. Fugitive Wookiee is just a high-statted unit. L3 is a shielded, essentially crafty smuggler, which helps us deploy, you know, upgrades on it without dying. Queel helps us draw cards as well as give us Restore 1 and a 2/3 body. Follow the Way can really go out of hand if you go like turn 1 Follow the Way, turn 2 Jedi Lightsaber. It is suddenly a 5/7 on turn 2, which is kind of absurd. So that could be really cool. And then we also have things as we go up the curve, such as Embo, Protector of the Throne. Embo is really nice because you're going to be completing attacks all the time since it's going to be upgraded, and you might be attacking opponent units, and then you can potentially heal up some damage afterwards, which is nice. Protector of the Throne, you upgrade this, it becomes a really annoying Sentinel, which is pretty nice to have. And then we also have, well, Razor Crest in space. giving us a way to return some upgrades and just a nice little restoring space unit. Tobias Beckett, kind of a repeat of the Mandalorian ability where you play non-unit cards like upgrades and you can exhaust units that essentially cost 4 or less, or, well, the same or less than whatever upgrade we played. Fen Rao, one of the most powerful units in our deck. You play this and then you can play like Devotion or Electro Staff for free on Fen Rao or on anything, and then you can give something -2/-2. And then to finish off the deck, we have some of the new upgrades, which includes things like Mandalorian armor, really excellent on any Mandalorian. We have a couple of them, such as Fen Rao, such as the Mandalorian himself, and Follower of the Way. If you go turn 1, Follow the Way, turn 2 Mandalorian armor, suddenly it's a 3/7 shielded, which is really, really annoying to deal with. And Mandalorian Rifle. Okay, Mandalorian Rifle is the most important card of the entire deck. This is kind of what finishes out the game. This allows you to capture an exhausted enemy non-leader unit and just give you a +3/+0 stat bonus. Remember, you only get that capture if you play it on the Mandalorian. So you play Mandalorian, you play the Mandalorian's rifle, it becomes a 7/7, you capture an exhausted unit, and suddenly your opponent's just super behind on board, and it is really gross to see. And lastly, we have 1 copy of Evidence of the Crime. You know, maybe we're getting some upgrade decks, maybe we're not. It's just kind of a nice value card against, you know, some sort of upgrade synergy deck. And that's what we're going to be playing with today. So we're going to see if we can take some wins with Mandalorian Blue and the sort of upgrade tempo strategy that we got going on. And hopefully we don't fight against too many control decks, which this does struggle a little bit against. Starting us off with our first matchup against a double green Palp. And unfortunately for us, this hand is all upgrades, no units. So that's going to be a mulligan. And well, we found ourselves a pretty nice one. We got turn 1 Follower or Fugitive Wookiee into turn 2 Upgrade or Ezra. I think because we want to play Ezra on turn 2, I'm actually going to resource the Follower of the Way. And I'll probably resource the Razor Crest because we're probably not going to have an upgrade in our discard pile. I'd rather just kind of curve out here, go 2, 3, 4, and then maybe play the Electro Staff when it's convenient for us. For example, they could do something crazy where, well, I don't know, they need to attack something, like they go, I don't know, V-Wing here, ping my Fugitive Wookiee, and then they play a Super Laser Tech, and then we can exhaust it to get some value going. But Ezra Bridger also helps us do some nice stuff for kind of getting us some extra cards later on in the game. Looks like they defeated the TIE Fighter just to draw a card. So essentially they took their turn 1 play and decided to deal 1 damage to my Fugitive Wookiee. That's essentially what they did in this turn, which is pretty weak, I might say. Resupply, we're going to play an Ezra Bridger. And, you know, I'm liking kind of our start here. We have a couple really solid upgrades. There's a Devotion. I think we can go ahead and safely resource that. It's going to be the weakest upgrade that we have in our deck so far, against this matchup at least. And our opponent's on a decent amount of resources for sure. They're going to Traitorous, which is a little bit scary for sure. They can Traitorous like Ezra here or the Fugitive Wookiee. I think in this spot, we can either play the Jedi Lightsaber to exhaust the Ezra, or we just play a Kanan. I think in this spot, I actually do just want to go ahead and play the Jedi Lightsaber on the Fugitive Wookiee and get in for a bunch of damage. Traitorous is pretty good against our deck as, well, we have a lot of upgrades. So if they Traitorous something with a lot of upgrades on it, it is very, very disgusting. So we do have to be somewhat careful about this, but I think this kind of gives us the most advantageous play, just to get in as much damage as we can in the earlier stages. And then we're going to just try to use our Mandalorian flip to finish out the game coming up here in just a moment. Let's go to resource a Queel here. Fen Rao could potentially be good as essentially playing this Electro Staff for free. I do like getting down the Chewbacca at this point, although my opponent could have all manner of things. Like an Overwhelming Barrage here would be pretty brutal for us. Just attacking here is really not all that scary because we're just going to attack back and then we get to deploy our Chewbacca here. And on 6 resources, they don't really have too many things that I'm super scared of. When it comes to 7 resources, that's when it gets a little bit scary, simply because they could have things like, well, Darth Vader, Maul, that type of stuff. And here well, really, really nice couple of cards that we ended up picking up. Fen Rao is awesome here. We can play Fen Rao, put a snapshot reflexes on the fugitive Wookiee and attack for 7, which is kind of crazy. We could also put an Electro Staff on the Chewbacca. I think I want to resource this Kanan, and I'm going to take it a little bit slow here. I'm actually just going to go ahead and attack their base for 6. Because remember, we can flip the Mandalorian here, and we can get in some really nice damage just to kind of mess with our opponent. They're going to play a command. I'm curious what they're going to do here. They could kill my fugitive Wookiee and exhaust my Chewbacca, I suppose. But that's not really that strong of a play. Experience and resource. Interesting. I'm going to attack their base for 3. So it looks like they're trying to flip Palpatine. But to be honest, that's not really that scary of a play. And remember, if they flip Palpatine here, then we get to do something like, okay, they steal our Palpatine after they dealt a damage to it, but then we capture it with the Mandalorian's rifle. So I think here we just get down the Mandalorian. They're probably going to, well, even if they deal a damage to Chewbacca here, we are in a position where we just play Fen Rao. And then, well, we can't play Fen Rao. It's actually a little bit more tricky than I let on. Because they're going to deal a damage to my Chewbacca here and then flip. And then we capture it. Yeah. We Fen Rao here. We snapshot reflexes. Oh. So they're just going to get down Palpatine and take the fugitive Wookiee? Because that's the only option that they have. Okay. I think in that case, I'm just going to play the Mandalorian rifle because they shouldn't have anything for 2 resources. And I'll capture the fugitive Wookiee, and then I can exhaust the Palpatine. I should be able to exhaust any units. I should have been able to exhaust the well, actually, hold on. There's a lot of things that could happen. I should have been able to play this, exhaust the Cobb Vanth with my initial play. I don't know if I misclicked there. And then capture the fugitive Wookiee, exhaust the Emperor Palpatine. So that was a pretty nice one. I thought they were going to try to deal a damage to Chewbacca, then flip to take the Sentinel. Because it doesn't actually ready him if they deal a damage. But, I mean, in this spot, we are just going to attack their base for 7. And honestly, that was a pretty convincing win. Even though we were against kind of like a mid-rangey, a little bit more controlling. They even traitorous our Ezra. The Jedi lightsaber on the fugitive Wookiee and smacking Andros for a ton of damage every turn is kind of brutal. And we had a lot of gas in our hands. So we had the Fen Rao, we had the snapshot reflexes, and we had the Electro Staff. And against Palpatine, the rifle is even better because if they deal with the Mandalorian, well, guess what? We get to go ahead and get our unit back, which is kind of cool. So anyways, let's go on to game number 2. And on to game number 2 against Mono Yellow Han. Now, this is a matchup I'm a little bit scared of because they could have things like spare the target, waylays, that type of situation where we don't really get to do our upgrade thing. This hand's a little bit weak to that. I think we actually mulligan this to look for a better hand. And this does do that. We get the Millennium Falcon, we have the Kanan, we have the Guardian of the Wills or the L337. And we do not have the initiative, which means I'm going to go ahead and resource this Guardian of the Wills. And I think in this spot, I actually don't want the Millennium Falcon because if I'm going to go 2, 3, 4, I'm not going to want to pay for the Millennium Falcon. I'd rather have the 2-4 on the battlefield versus the 3-4 in space here. To actually be able to curve out, right? Because I'm going to want to bounce that to my hand in order to play my my card. So Playing an L337 on turn 1 isn't super exciting, but it's essentially just a crafty smuggler with small upside, and that's good enough for me. Queel here alongside Jedi Lightsaber, both mediocre. I kind of like playing a Queel out here. And I think I will, depending on our opponent's play. Spark of Rebellion. Well, we have a couple different cards in hand, so seeing a Spark of Rebellion is really not scary at all. And they took the upgrade, which makes me a little bit excited. Oh, we just drew the Jedi Lightsaber, which is looking pretty good here. We get to go Jedi Lightsaber on the L3, exhaust your Greedo. And now we have a 5/5 L3, and yeah, they can waylay, I suppose, but that's really not super strong. We get to attack their base, and ooh, look at that. We discarded the Queel, which, you know, drew a card here. And we're going to attack their base for 5. And if they want to get down a 4/4 or a 4/5 like a Kanan or something, that's fine. They did nothing. All right, well, I like that very, very much. We drew another Mandalorian's rifle and, well, a Razor Crest. I'm not a huge fan of the secondary Queel. They're going to go ahead and do the Greedo nonsense here. And I think I just want to get down a unit here, so I'm not actually going to play a Mandalorian's rifle at all, but I will play a Kanan here, as that's going to be pretty valuable. They can Han, they can attack, do their nonsense if they'd like. They're attacking my base. Ooh, they got a Han Solo here. And that is a little bit scary, most certainly. We have a Protector of the Throne. We have Mandalorian Rifle. I actually think Protector of the Throne goes into the resource pile. And I'm going to do something a little bit strange here. I'm actually going to attack their base with my Kanan here. They have Han out, yes, but they're going to attack to get rid of my Kanan almost assuredly, and that means that we could set up a Mandalorian's rifle on the Mandalorian and kind of do some major work here. Exactly what I was kind of expecting. Let's go ahead and flip the Mandalorian. And of course, if they have a surprise strike here, they got us. Can't really do too much about that. They had a really nice Han flip turn, which is kind of what we were scared about. Maklunki here is really not too worrisome. We get to put a devotion on our Mandalorian and exhaust the Han Solo. Spark of Rebellion, not really going to do a whole lot. We're going to Mandalorian's rifle. Oh, wait. I meant to Mandalorian's rifle that. Wait, what? That was strange. That was very strange. I was trying to... that was weird. Anyways, they bounced the L3 with Maklunki, which allows them to get back their Han. But this works pretty reasonably for us because we get Razor Crest here, and then we are able to return potentially one of our upgrades back to our hand. Sorry, I was processing on how that was actually going to function there. We get to go resource the follower. They're going to hit my Mandalorian, of course. We go Ezra, and they probably kill it. Which is fine. And then we go Razor Crest, return a devotion to hand, which is going to set up lethal for next turn. So they need to have something here that's going to prevent them from dying. Millennium Falcon. Okay, so they have a Millennium Falcon. I mean, that is, exactly what they were kind of looking for. Let's go. Let's go Electro Staff into the resource pile. So we have to go attack their base for 3. Play a Razor Crest, return a Jedi Lightsaber. And now they have to take initiative yet again because we have a lethal space threat. But I'm not liking our chances in this game so far because we don't actually have that many ways to close out the game on this last point of damage. The Mach Clunky actually ended up being pretty relevant because they got to bounce the L3, which set up a nice, counter capture card. And then they have the Han in play, which is pretty strong. Not sure what our opponent's doing. I mean, in this spot, you just have to take initiative. Oh, okay. I suppose that is one way to go about things. Mach Clunky, yeah. I mean, if you got the Mach Clunky, then yeah, go for it. We have to claim initiative. They're going to play it. They're going to ambush. Yeah, I don't know if that wasn't really that difficult of a decision. You just, you got to deal with the space unit, right? That's just what's got to happen. And that's going to be the end of the game. So we weren't able to quite close it out. I think the one turn there was potentially going ahead and waiting to play the Mandalorian rifle, like attacking, let them play L337, then play Mandalorian rifle, and try to go that direction. But then that kind of puts me in less damage to their base. I think they just ended up having a pretty nice sequence of cards. I could have potentially, as I said, done exactly that. But, well, double yellow Han, not exactly a great matchup. Because, again, if they're playing Cunning or anything like that, which they probably should. And, of course, L3 counters our best card in the deck. So nice game from our opponent there. On to our next match against Grand Inquisitor Yellow. And this is kind of the ideal spot for Mando Blue because there's going to be a lot of units that we can actually exhaust with the ready potential. Or with the damage potential from our opponents. And here, this isn't a great hand by any means, but I'm going to go ahead and resource both of the Chewbacca's here because this is a matchup where your upgrades and your units are probably going to be able to live as long as you do get the upgrades down. And I will play a turn 1 Guardian of the Wills because if our opponent has something that can actually potentially kill it, well, they probably will have to go ahead and, trade their units because they have to deal damage to ready it immediately. Here's an Embo and a Guardian or a Protector of the Throne. Which one do I want more? I think I like the Embo more. No, I like the Protector of the Throne more. So here, I'm actually just going to go ahead and attack their base. Because I kind of want to play Protector of the Throne if I can. They're going to play, okay, they're going to play a 7th Fleet Defender. That's fine with me. I'm going to play a Protector of the Throne, which is going to give Sentinel once I upgrade it with this Electro Staff, which is going to be really nice because it's going to be a 4/6 Sentinel, and then it gives -1/-0 to anything that's attacking it. So that's going to be really powerful. And then next turn, we're going to be able to play potentially Devotion on this Guardian of the Wills, which could be a little bit cheaper if we want. Of course, we do have a Kanan here, which I think I actually go ahead and potentially resource. I want both these upgrades because I can play both of them this turn. I suppose I could actually play one of these upgrades and then the Millennium Falcon. So maybe I resource one of the upgrades. And I think if I'm going to choose one of them, then I would rather put... This one prevents Sentinel, though. No. I'd rather just play both upgrades down as soon as I can and kind of get the value rolling that way. I will go with the Electro Staff here on the Protector of the Throne to start us off. So we go Electro Staff on Protector. We get to exhaust the 7th Fleet Defender. So look at that. Already super good against this, kind of racing scenario where we have a Sentinel. We got to exhaust their 3-powered units. So they can't even get in for damage. And then we're going to be able to get in for damage here, which is really, really good. They're going to Jeddah City. All right. I mean, that's fine. Not really that scary, to be honest. Jeddah City is definitely a weak base, one of the weaker bases, and this devotion on our Guardian of the Wills is really going to carry a lot of the game. I think not only are we going to be able to exhaust a lot of our opponent's units, but also we can just go ahead and restore a bunch of HP. And next turn we have Mandalorian's Rifle, should we choose to use it. Admiral Modi, not at all scary. This card is very, very awkward. Like, yes, they can defeat it to ready up the 7th Fleet Defender, but essentially that means that Admiral Moti was ready a 3-power unit, which is keep fighting, right? But with more actions involved, not a strong unit at all. So if that's what they're going to do here, then sure. They could also have waylays and things like that in Grand Inquisitor Yellow, but usually you don't want to waste cards in your slot for things like Waylay when you're playing a hyper aggressive style of deck like this, and you don't have things like Boba action to recoup the resources that you use on something like that. They have a sneak attack. Okay, they're gonna sneak attack out a Death Watch Loyalist. Okay, we're gonna claim initiative, and I suppose that they can hit my Protector of the Throne for 5 if they would like, or 4 rather. That is very, very weak. Oh no, they can sneak attack, and then ready it up again, which is, you know, reasonable. You know, they were able to go ahead and kill my my Protector of the Throne for essentially using 2 cards. So not terrible from our opponent. Definitely reasonable. Here, I want to keep the Fen Rao for sure. And I think I just want to keep the Kanan. And I'm going to attack the base to start us off here. And then I'll play out the Kanan. Our opponent could still, you know, definitely come back in this game. I would say that we have a far better flip turn for sure, compared to a Grand Inquisitor. But they could do some nasty stuff here. You know, they could double ready an Imperial unit here if they would like to, right? Play something, get some value going. We're going to claim initiative here. If they want to ready up a Death Watch Loyalist and attack my Kanan, I'm fine with that. If they want to hit my Guardian of the Wills, I'm also fine with that. It's really not that scary whatsoever. Again, they're kind of just trading 1 for 1 in their aggro deck. If they want to go ahead and do this, which is, you know, attack a bunch into my base, then that's also completely fine. Deal 2 to the Death Watch Loyalist, ready it up again. Makes sense. Kill off that guy, and well, we have a Fen Rao, which is quite nice. We also have Embo. So I can go Mandalorian's Rifle plus Embo, or I can go Fen Rao this turn. I think I'm actually going to resource the Fen Rao because I kind of want to play these 2 this turn and then Luke Skywalker next turn. I think that's going to be the most exciting kind of option that we have. Let's attack base, heal up a little bit. We're definitely in the racing scenario right now, so we're just going to go ahead and deploy Mandalorian, and then we're going to see what they end up doing here. Remember, we can just capture an exhausted non-leader unit, which is extremely powerful. Return another friendly non-leader. They return the... Okay, so let's go Embo. Attack in for 1. Let's go Mandalorian Rifle on the Mandalorian. Let's go ahead and take the Xanadu Blood. Oh, and I guess we can exhaust the Admiral Moti. I could have waited, right, until their Grand Inquisitor was ready to go, but this just seems far too strong. And, ooh, this is an interesting one. So I have Jedi Lightsaber. I could put Jedi Lightsaber and Mandalorian Armor on the Mandalorian. But I think in this spot, I actually just want to keep the Mandalorian Armor and Luke to give me the most options. Wow, they have Disabling Fang Fighter. Okay. But they should have their Xanadu Blood back. I suppose it's not quite working right now. That's unfortunate for them. Well, I don't think it would have mattered. We were going to attack the base for 4, heal 2. They could have attacked. They don't have a friendly non-leader underworld unit, right? Nope. So we would have just attacked their base for 4. They could have attacked us for 6 here with the Xanadu Blood. I'm just kind of thinking of kind of what the game would have played out to be. They play a Boba Fett. We attack their base for 3. If they defeat Moti to ready up Boba Fett, then we just Luke Skywalker it. They could have readied up the Xanadu Blood twice, once with the Moti. So they could have attacked me for another 6. And here we just play a Luke, give this thing -3/-3, and now they can't kill anything on our side of the board. I guess they could kill Embo here. but that doesn't really solve the issue. So I don't think that them not getting the Xanadu blood back was relevant. They can attack my Kanan here and ready up the Boba and then kill Boba, but we've already claimed initiative, and that's going to be the end of the game. So while, you know, getting the Xanadu blood back was really nice with their disabling Fang Fighter, didn't actually end up mattering in the grand scheme of things. Obviously, that should have worked as that was a little bit odd, but disabling Fang Fighter in your main deck with the Grand Inquisitor, I don't think that really works all that well. I suppose they are expecting some upgrades coming. Disabling Fang Fighter, I will say, I think got a lot better in this next set, so I won't be surprised if people start running it main deck. But it always does shock me a little bit, especially when you have so many options now with the new set. But anyways, on to game number 3. All right, I said game number 3, but this is actually game number 4, and we're against Double Red Kylo, and we have a pretty decent hand, okay? We can go ahead and resource the Tobias Beckett and probably the Embo, just in case they have space units, and we go Queel turn 1, which is Restorer, which is nice, and then we can suit it up with a Jedi Lightsaber, which can end up kind of trading with anything, and we also have the Millennium Falcon if they end up with a space-centric kind of group of cards here. Fugitive Wookiee looking, well, maybe not that great. Here we go. Jedi Lightsaber, exhaust your Partisan Insurgent, right? This is the type of deck where Mando Blue shines. This is one of our best matchups. And then we get to go ahead and, well, attack with our 5/6. Potentially even just start racing, which is going to be really, really nice. So we exhaust the Partisan Insurgent. We probably just kill the Partisan Insurgent, to be honest. That's probably what I'm going to do here. Just kidding. We're going to go ahead and hit the Migs Mayfeld. And they can Tarkin Town here, which is fine, but not great. Okay, so we drew Snapshot Reflexes and the Electro Staff. So Electro Staff is pretty nice. I think what we do is we go Snapshot Reflexes on the Queel. We exhaust the Stormtrooper and then hit the Partisan Insurgent, so we keep Queel alive. And this prevents them from going ahead and trying and hitting Queel with Tarkin Town, because we're trying to keep Queel alive in this spot. Tarkin Town, of course, is something that we're trying to play around as much as we can. We could play another Jedi Lightsaber on Queel. We could also play an Electro Staff. If they deploy Kylo, then we can go ahead and get down ourselves a Jedi Lightsaber or Electro Staff, and we exhaust Kylo. I suppose we actually could not exhaust Kylo. Chaos of War, really, really strong card there. Let's just go ahead and play a Follower of the Way and then let them get down Kylo if they would like to. Not really that big of a deal here. And they conceded. All right, no devotions, and they did have a nice Chaos of War, but this deck is really, really good against Kylo Red. As I mentioned, the tempo decks, this tempo deck against any sort of aggro or mid-range deck usually does really well, because just the fact that we prevented them from attacking just through the actions alone. Remember, we killed a unit and Snapshot Reflexes ended up killing the one, and we were able to exhaust the other, but both turns we were able to exhaust something so they could not get in damage, and that's the power of the Mandalorian there. On to our next matchup against Kira, and this one's going to be a interesting one. This one tends to be a little bit of a longer great game with a little bit more grind to it, and so I'm looking at this hand, I'm thinking that we probably could just resource the L337, because that can smuggle out if we so choose. Follow of the Way could potentially be good, but we don't have any upgrades in hand, so I think in this spot we actually want to resource it. And I'm just going to start off with Queel. Queel is just one of those cards that when you start off with them, you feel amazing, because this thing just draws you a card oftentimes, right? It has to be a blue card, right? Because it has to share an aspect with the base. We have a lot of blue cards in our deck, and half the time, if not more, I actually don't know how many blue cards compared to yellow cards or heroism cards that we're running. But it draws you a card a good portion of the time, and that's obviously extremely exciting. The only thing that we're really kind of sad about is if they place on like a Hilo Bond Enforcer and then give it a shield, so we actually can't have Queel trade with anything. Scout Bike Pursuer, not nearly as scary because, well, if you look, the this costs a resource to actually be able to go ahead and do that. So let's go ahead and resource this Queel, and I'm gonna actually do something maybe surprising. Should I? Yeah, I think in this spot I actually attack their Scout Bike Pursuer. The reason I am attacking their Scout Bike Pursuer, even though it gives them the grit, it prevents them from dealing the 2 damage on the Scout Bike Pursuer to give it a shield. Because if you think about it, if I go attack their base with Queel, they give a shield token to Scout Bike Pursuer, and then they kill my Queel. That's kind of unfortunate. In this spot, we take 3 damage, but at least my Queel trades with the Scout Bike Pursuer, which is much preferred over anything else that could potentially happen in this situation. So I very much like kind of where we ended up. And of course, I can also follow it up with Embo, which allows me to potentially heal off some damage if, that's relevant in certain situations. And well, we're going to play an Embo here. And, well, if we attack the Scout Bike Pursuer and kill it, we can actually heal up the Embo or the Queel. So we have a few different options, to be honest. And in this spot, putting an Electro Staff on a Embo looks really, really nice, actually, because we can use our Queel to trade into the Scout Bike Pursuer, and then the Electro Staff on the Embo gives it enough toughness to where we empower where we're trading with something. Oh, wow. Legal Authority, huh? Okay. We're going to claim initiative, and that's fine with me. Legal Authority is really not super scary in this spot, especially since we have options and ways kind of around that. Let's see here. We can resource probably the Millennium Falcon at this point. And we can go Electro Staff plus something else, or we could just attack. Legal Authority, huh? It allowed them to put a shield token on their Scout Bike. We can Electro Staff and exhaust the Scout Bike, but I think we just want to attack their base for 3 and put down a Kanan. I think Kanan's going to be a lot more exciting here. I could also put a Razor Crest down, but we have no upgrades in the discard pile right now, so I'm not nearly as excited about that. That is an Embo. We're going to claim initiative. They're going to probably deal 2 damage to their Embo, put a shield token on it, and then they get to heal it up. So that was pretty cool, actually. Fen Rao coming in could potentially be a solid card. We can rescue, by the way, with the smuggled out... oh my gosh, I'm out of focus here. A smuggled out L3. But that's not going to be all that powerful. Let's see here. We go Electro Staff. We can go quite a few different things. Let's go Electro Staff on Kanan. Exhaust your Scout Bike Pursuer. Oh my gosh, I'm trolling you guys. I'm on the left-hand side. I thought I was over this. But I forgot. Oh man, we're working on it. It's a work in progress, guys. All right, I'll get Kanan down, and he's got a big butt. He's got 7 toughness and 6 power. Also can help us heal up a little bit if we need to do so. Now we can attack the Scout Bike Pursuer with Kanan. They're gonna deal some damage here. Okay. Interesting. So they want to try to kill Kanan, I suppose. But we can kill their Scout Bike Pursuer and then get back Queel, which is pretty favorable for us. And then they use their Kirat deployment, which is not really that scary here, especially if they just try to kill Kanan, which they can't. Well, they could. But that doesn't quite work with the... Well, no. You can't be attacking without realizing that you have the Electro Staff and then undo it. That's definitely something that... there's some plays where it's like you misclick. But they forgot the staff, of course. That's what they did. So, fair enough, fair enough. We're not playing that hardcore of a game. But they're going to go ahead and kill my Embo, sure. We're just going to go ahead and deploy a Protector of the Throne, and if they want to hit it, that's fine. We can trade our Queel for their Kira. Fenrau also looking pretty good here, potentially. We have no upgrades in our discard pile, which is a little unfortunate at this point, but yep, they're going to go ahead and attack with Kira into our guy. They can, well, depending on what they want to do here, they have a lot of different options. One of our best draws next turn will be Resupply. Okay, Resupply is not scary. Okay, that was not one of our best draws. Something like a Devotion or a Snapshot Reflex is something that we could play off of Fenrau to give something -2/-2 when we play that. But here, I mean, I'm just going to go ahead and kill Kira. And, well, we drew a Razor Crest, so that's something. And then they have an Embo Maul. Okay, they're going to ambush it and have Embo take the damage, which ended up being pretty nice here. And then we get to go... Ooh. We get to go Mando Rifle, Capture Maul, deal 7 to your base. I can kill the Pershing, but I'm honestly not really that afraid of that. Capture the Maul. Then we attack their base for 7. Now they could have like another Maul here, and if they do, that's okay, because we end up trading 1 for 1, and then we can do something like Razor Crest plus something else. Let's go ahead and get rid of the Razor Crest here. Let's just attack for 7 into their base. They're going to draw a card here with Dr. Pershing. That gives me a sense that they don't have anything, because if they had something to Maul, they almost assuredly play it on that specific turn. Here we can go Razor Crest, bring back Electro Staff, and put the Electro Staff on the Mandalorian. Razor Crest looking pretty good in this spot. Put the Electro Staff on the Mando, so it's just a huge unit. And then we pass. I don't even need to use the Snapshot Reflexes. And remember, we have like Luke, we have Fenrau here. I mean, we have a ton of different options. If they attack my Razor Crest here, then we can actually play Fenrau, play the Snapshot Reflexes for free onto the Mandalorian, attack for 10, and then kill the Clan Saxon Gauntlet. So that's insane, just like ridiculous. What was our opponent got? I'm feeling pretty confident about this game. Feeling pretty confident about this game. Overwhelming Barrage. Let's see what they've got. Deal 6 to the Mandalorian. All right. In that case, I think I'm just going to go ahead and hit their base for 9. I'm not 100% sure what they could have for 4 here that makes me not want to do that. So here we just play a Kanan out. Just get some more units on the battlefield that are lethal. I could have taken initiative there, but they have 4 resources available, which, you know, they do have options with 4 resources. Especially since if you kill the Mandalorian, you get back Maul. And if, let's say, we didn't play anything, we just took initiative, then they could have just killed my Kanan with their Maul, and then we would have been in a much worse position. But it looks like we won that game, and, you know, GG to our opponent. That was, well, a little bit closer there at the end, but I felt like we were pretty ahead of the game, even when they were doing their legal authority, Embo, Scout Bike Pursuer, Shield Token nonsense, which was pretty sweet. I haven't really seen too much of legal authority besides, the times I've tried to play with it. And in some parts, it's really, really good. Like in that situation, it was better than what I think the outcome could have been if they didn't have it, but ended up being pretty weak for them overall. Heck, we even had things like Tobias Beckett and L3 in our smuggle pile, or resource pile, which could have been useful as well. But on to the next one. On to our next game against Kylo Red, which is a very powerful deck. But once again, this deck is probably the best deck you could possibly play against it. This hand could be good if we had a two resource resource unit, I should say, to get down. But unfortunately, we did not have that. And, well, we ended up drawing into something pretty good. I think in this spot, we can actually get rid of the Mandalorian's rifle and potentially one of our 2-drops. And I think I'm going to go for the higher value play in Guardian of the Wills. The only way this goes wrong is if they have something like Miggs Mayfeld and then discard a card to kill Guardian of the Wills on turn 1. That could do something. But the thing with Guardian of the Wills is that it can equip a Jedi lightsaber and go to town. Whereas putting a Queel into play and getting a Jedi lightsaber, it's a lot harder to manage the Tarkin town, kind of thing going on, because Guardian of the Wills actually gives the defender -2/-2, which is extremely, extremely important in order for us to kind of avoid taking too much damage. And fortunately for us, they have a 1-drop play, which, well, is going to end up pretty nice for us. We have a Tobias Beckett, which we could probably toss into the smuggle pile at this point, and we're just going to go Guardian of the Wills, or Jedi lightsaber on Guardian of the Wills, exhaust your Death Star Stormtrooper, and then they can only attack for 2, and then we could kill the Reckless Gunslinger for free potentially, and then put a Devotion on Guardian of the Wills and get to town there. We could also kill their Death Star Stormtrooper. That's a little bit scary because their Death Star Stormtrooper deals 1 damage, and that means that the Tarkin town could potentially do some work against this Guardian of the Wills. It showed that I could play the Devotion on the Guardian of the Wills, and I was a little bit confused there because I was like, I'm pretty sure this is the first upgrade you play, and it does. So I'm going to honor that to not play a Devotion for one resource when I already played a Jedi Lightsaber for 2 resources. Of course, my preferred draw this next turn has got to be the extra copies of Devotion. I would love to see straight up 2 more Devotions pop out of my library right now and into my hand. Of course, getting a Chewbacca isn't too bad either. And so is Kanan. Kanan's also quite solid. And here, I'm actually just going to go ahead and kill the Partisan Insurgent. We're not going to take any damage off that. And this might look a little bit risky because, we are going to get the Guardian of the Wills potentially, attacked by a Death Star Stormtrooper. But fortunately for us, they ended up using Daring Raid plus Tarkin Town, and now they're going to go deploy Kanan, attack for a decent chunk of damage. If they hit my Kanan, or they're going to discard a card to attack with a Stormtrooper for a decent chunk of damage. Hopefully it's not like a silencer, so they can't get some extra value going, but looks like they discarded Saw Gerrera, which, well, Saw Gerrera against us is, wait, where is it? Could be potentially decent. They're going to attack for some decent damage here for sure. There's a Ruthlessness. Okay. Here we have Electro Staff, Chewbacca, Devotion. I'm actually going to go ahead and just kill Kylo Ren to start us off. They did a lot of damage that last turn for sure. But this Kanan's going to heal us up, and their Kylo doesn't actually kill us. So we get to heal 1 from the Bo-Katan, which is really nice. And then here we get to play a Chewbacca, and that's going to give us a Sentinel here that it's going to be pretty difficult to deal with. So I am very much liking our position at this point. And we get to go Electro Staff on the Chewbacca, and probably Jedi Lightsaber on Kanan or Devotion on Kanan. And the Electro Staff on Chewbacca is going to let us exhaust the Interceptor, so we actually don't take damage here from the interceptor this turn, which is pretty important. And now we can kind of start to close out the game, ideally with a Mando flip, and just getting in for a bunch of damage is kind of the idea here. And then Kanan healing us back up alongside the Restore 2 from Devotion, I think is going to be pretty important. Here, though, I'm going to go ahead and attack their Death Star Stormtrooper just to get that off the board and not have to worry about that at all. And, okay, well, we're going to go ahead and deploy Mando. Get down a Devotion on Mando. We can exhaust something. Attack, heal. We get rid of a Fallen Lightsaber, and then we pass. And now we have Fen Rao plus Jedi Lightsaber, which is going to be really excellent to actually kill off a unit. Or we could just play the Luke Skywalker, which can also kill off a unit. Honestly, the Fen Rao play, that's going to be enough for lethal, so that's what I'm going to go with. And they're going to discard a card to start us off here. Let's see what they discard. Miggs Mayfeld, and they give the TIE Fighter. Well, that's kind of unfortunate. Wait. I should be able to play the Jedi Lightsaber. Isn't working. All right. I said Fen Rao isn't working, but that's unfortunate. I don't know if it'll matter here. I suppose that's a little bit unlucky. So what should have happened there is I play Fen Rao, I get down a Jedi Lightsaber, and I go ahead and exhaust their Punishing One or their Imperial Interceptor, and then because I played a lightsaber, I get the -2/-2 on the TIE Fighter. So this game shouldn't even be remotely close. Like, it should just be straight up over. Like, there's nothing that they could do here. And I could attack here, but they could have something like, I don't know, what could they have? They could have, what could they have that makes it a little bit scary? I mean, if we attack here, then we get the heal, and they are going to need something that kills Chewbacca to ready up the Punishing One. I mean, they have to deal with all of our threats, and, well, I guess it's game. But Fen Rao not working properly. Again, that card would have been a sweet, or this card would have been a sweet card to play on this turn. We would have dealt with 2 of their threats and kind of won the game instantaneously. So pretty nice one on this one. All right, and we are into our final game of today. We have against our opponent on Ray Green. Wow, that was tough, guys. You saw me struggle there. And this hand's pretty okay. We have a 2-drop, a 3-drop, and a 4-drop. We're going to resource one of these Kanans and probably the Luke, although that one's a little bit sad to resource. Honestly, I think in this spot, I actually want to resource the Embo, because putting a Jedi Lightsaber on the Fugitive Wookiee is just so massive that it could probably just trade with a bunch of things that comes down. Of course, they play a Battlefield Marine, and if we end up drawing nothing here, that could end up being pretty bad for us. Usually, you're not playing Battlefield Marines in your Ray Green deck, or at least not that I've found, so I guess unlucky for us. We end up drawing in a Mandalorian's Rifle and Razor Crest, which I think we go ahead and resource the Razor Crest. I wanted the upgrade just because 2 things. Ray Greens tend to kind of play weaker units and then take some time to buff up their power, but they have high toughness. But if you play a Jedi Lightsaber, you kind of mess up their equation. So it ends up being pretty good typically. And that's kind of nice to play, you know, or to kind of take advantage of our opponent's little diddly-daddling. For example, killing their 1/5 with our 6/6. That's exactly what I was expecting. And I will absolutely take that trade, as that is just an excellent trade for us. And now they have a 3/3 and we have a 6/6, and they could ECL something out here, like a Rose Tico, for example, which could be interesting. But I mean, we are probably ahead by a large margin. They're going to play a Razor Crest. We're going to play a Kanan. And I think that we're kind of just outpacing them, as our Kanan kind of gives us Restore 2 as well. And look at that, we drew ourselves a Protector of the Throne and an Ezra, and now we get to go ahead and resource that and play an Ezra plus Queel this turn. We're going to go ahead and attack for 6 with the Fugitive Wookiee just to make sure we get in as much damage as possible. I'm going to go ahead and kill their Battlefield Marine, heal up. Looks like, what did I heal up? We hit a Rivals Fall, so that's kind of nice. We're gonna go ahead and play an Ezra. Then we're gonna go ahead and play a Queel, and we're gonna pass. And now, I mean, our hand looks pretty good. And I'm actually gonna resource the Follower of the Way because I expect Kanan to be dying this turn. No, they're gonna kill my Ezra, and they discarded Devotion here. Let's go ahead and start off with attacking their base for 6 with the Fugitive Wookiee so they don't just exhaust a couple different things. Let's go ahead and hit their base with Kanan so that we go ahead and actually guarantee ourselves some damage. Let's go ahead and hit their base with Queel, because we are on the aggro plan and we can just straight up kill them this turn if they have nothing else. Let's go ahead and play the Mandalorian. And we play Mandalorian's rifle on the Mandalorian. We capture their Kanan, and now we hit for 7. So I don't know what they could play here, but that's going to be the game. And look at that. So our plan of, resourcing the card to play the Jedi Lightsaber on Fugitive Wookiee ended up working pretty well. I will say it's kind of like an awkward trade for them, but I think you should absolutely make that trade with Battlefield Marine and Fugitive Wookiee when you're against an upgrade style of deck. You never know what could happen. And especially when you're sitting on like Sundari Peacekeeper, like that's exactly the type of card that I wanted to see with that type of hand, where I kept the Fugitive Wookiee and the Jedi Lightsaber because I was expecting them to play low power, high toughness cards and then expect to buff them or have raid things or grit synergies or things like that, because that's kind of what raid does. And so that ended up working out extremely well for us. They had quite a bit of restore, so we actually did way more damage than you might have thought. They had double or triple attacks with Razor Crest. They had the what was the other attack that they made? Oh, they had the Kanan. Yeah, they attacked with Kanan, and they did all these things. And I guess they wanted to go with the value play of killing my Ezra with their Kanan instead of just killing my Kanan with their Kanan. I feel like killing my Kanan with their Kanan is just a lot more powerful. But anyways, that's going to be the last game that I'm going to go over today. And let's talk about the deck, guys. All right, so Mando Blue. This deck ended up performing exceptionally well. I know I've been getting comments saying, why do you only show the wins? And I mean, I try not to, but a lot of people on Carabas are not used to a lot of the cards or not used to the decks or getting used to the decks or practicing. And I've been playing, all this set 2, probably an unhealthy amount, but I've been having fun with it. And with this list, I have played 14 games and I've lost 2 of them, one of which I think you saw here. I believe I've lost only 2 of them. And the deck just performed really well. Right now, the meta on Carabast and the meta in general is a lot of aggro decks, and Mandalorian Blue is exceptional against any sort of aggro or even some of the mid-range decks. You saw against Kira, you saw against Kylos, you saw against, heck, even like the Palp deck, where you just exhaust these powerful units, and then you can really control the board. Your opponent's expecting to trade, and now, well, they have to trade after they've already taken the damage that you've done to them because of the exhaust from Mandalorian. It is just an extremely powerful ability, and it just does some major work. And especially against decks like Kylo, you saw there where I took like 19 damage or something, and that was even after I've healed. Imagine if we hadn't exhausted a couple things and actually just straight up killed our opponent's stuff. We would have taken an additional like 6-7 points of damage at the minimum. And that's on top of, well, we already healed a bunch, right? So between the healing, between the, we have Devotion, we have Queel, between the tankiness of like Electro Staff and things like that, we just do so well against aggro decks. The cards I found the most impressive: Queel, exceptional. Jedi Lightsaber, still exceptional. We didn't actually get to see the Mandalorian armor, but it is really good, especially if you play it on something like Follower of the Way or Mandalorian himself or Protector of the Throne. Kanan, still great. Chewbacca, amazing in this deck, where it's just a massive sentinel. Fen Rao could be absolutely game swinging, super powerful card, and probably the most unsung hero of the whole deck is Devotion. This card just ends up winning you so many games in terms of just restoring you up. I think if I were to, make some tweaks, at least from the matches that we've played today, I would take out the Millennium Falcons. I decided to put Millennium Falcons because I was having a little bit trouble against the aggro decks if they went, lane dodging and try to go all space. So I felt Millennium Falcon give me an instant ready unit, maybe trade with some units. But instead, I also tuned up the devotion numbers and some more healing cards in the deck. I would rather just take out these Millennium Falcons and play another devotion, play another snapshot reflexes, which ended up being really good, and potentially even another like Chewbacca or Fen Rao or Luke at the top end, where Luke can actually kill a space unit. And then we have Queel, Devotion, we have things like Jedi Lightsaber to make value trades, we have Mandalorian's Rifle, which you can capture things. You just do so much work. We have so much healing, we have so much interaction with Mandalorian's Rifle, with Luke, with all the big powerful units, that you just kind of clear out the game. The one card we didn't get to see, and I don't think I drew it any of the games, was Evidence of the Crime. And that card is pretty powerful if you're in the matchup for it. Like, I think we saw, I don't know if we saw any specific decks that were like absolutely focused on upgrades, and we could have taken like a Jedi Lightsaber or something like that. But if you're against a deck that is focusing on shields or something like that, heck, if we even took a shield from that Kira, like took the shield off the Scout Bike Pursuer and put it on our units, that would have changed the whole game as well. So in that game, I suppose Evidence of the Crime would have been really, really sweet. That card is an extremely swingy card and can be some of the best kind of game swings that you'll see. One card that I think a lot of people are potentially thinking about is the Darksaber. Darksaber can be decent, and it gives you a massive stat boost for the Mandalorian. And I have tried it out, but it felt more of a win more card, where if you're winning, you're going to play the Darksaber and win pretty hard anyways. Whereas like in the games where you play Mandalorian, you're trying to make him the win con, your opponent might have been able to just kill it before you get the Darksaber out. Whereas, the Mandalorian Rifle allows you to, hit things like space units where you otherwise couldn't, or hit exhausted units that couldn't have attacked you that turn, potentially, which can be pretty powerful. Darksaber can be good. Don't doubt me, or don't doubt that. But also Jedi Lightsaber on Mandalorian is also pretty good, right? Like that also kind of does the same thing. There aren't a whole lot of Mandalorians in the deck. We have, Follower of the Way, Fen Rao, Protector of the Throne. There's a decent amount, but not a ton. And unfortunately for us, I don't think Darksaber is like exceptionally powerful. I don't think that playing 1 to 2 copies is bad or anything. I just think that it's an expensive upgrade, and in some situations you'd rather just have those cheaper ones to be a little bit more flexible. The one thing that is nice about it is that you can go Darksaber plus Mandalorian's Rifle in the 7 resource turn, so maybe that's relevant. But you can't go like Mandalorian's Rifle plus Darksaber on the Mandalorian flip turn, which is arguably one of the most important things to be doing, is spending all your resources. So things like Mandalorian Armor plus a Mandalorian's Rifle is arguably even stronger, because you get that shield token, you protect your captured unit. Jedi Lightsaber could also be relevant, as that gives you a similar stat boost. And again, you don't care about the actual attack trigger. But anyways, guys, that's going to wrap up the video. Hopefully you enjoyed. I had a lot of fun making this one, and a lot of fun playing the deck and absolutely crushing those Kylo players after I put out that list, which, by the way, is an exceptional list. It's just not good against Mando Blue. It is atrocious against Mando Blue. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all for the next one.